Let me just give you a few immediate examples of why a corporate collection is important. You know, a corporation has to make a decision of where it's going to put its art. So let's say that a corporation has 2 buildings in a community, and one building is the one where the clients go to. It's the front office, and so a decision could be made, well, that's where we're going to put the art only. But actually, I've been in a situation where the art was also installed in both buildings, and in the back office, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most expensive art. Front office, for example, might have paintings and sculptures. Back office could have high-quality prints or whatever. But what that did is that it energized the people in that other office building. It made them feel that they were extremely important to the firm, that they were allowed to have art also. And I think that it really ultimately enhanced their motivation. Just a second quick example of why a corporate collection can be important. At Neuberger Berman, I know that some people have said to me, oh yeah, I remember the first time that I went there. I've never seen anything like that art before. So obviously having a corporate collection could also be a helpful form of branding and make a statement that your company is something very special, not average or not typical. Marketing, you can do so much with the corporate collection. Again, I know this is rather obvious, but you can give tours for clients and prospects. You can give tours to collector groups who might be visiting the community, often the kinds of people you would want to introduce to the company. You can use the corporate collection in annual reports. You could use it to enhance a website, and also for human relations with the firm. It can have great value, giving tours to employees, putting up little text labels that explain why a work of art is something that the company decided to spend money on. Have artists come in who are in the collection and give lunchtime talks to humanize the collection. So today, many working environments have art, but rarely is it a serious, high-profile corporate commitment that says the company is distinctive and special. Most often, corporate art, that term, is associated only with something to liven up the walls. So I think art improves the quality of life, so any kind of art is better than no art at all. But unlike art that functions as low-level decor, the great corporate collections have works of museum quality that compel attention rather than just being something in the background as office ambience. And often a serious corporate collection has its beginnings in the enthusiasm of the head of the firm. But the flourishing of that collection is as a serious commitment that goes on for years and decades, is generally sustained for some or all of 3 reasons. Number 1, a fundamental belief in art enhancing the lives of those who come into contact with it, a belief in the importance of preserving and sharing cultural patrimony, objects which capture the experience of the culture in which they were created, and of course, a belief in the importance of the collection for branding and marketing. Got to be realistic about it. So most often, a serious corporate collection initiative takes the form of art in the working environment. Reception areas, conference rooms, maybe art near the office of managing directors, maybe sometimes beyond that. But there are alternatives, and maybe you know of some of them. You could have outdoor sculpture collections. You could have a building that's dedicated to showing art from all kinds of sources. So maybe, you know, like the Bloomberg space in London does this, or Cartier in Paris, or the Hara Museum in Tokyo. So I thought it would be useful at this point just to give you one little specific example of a corporate collection, and that's the Neuberger Berman collection. I'll just talk about it just for a few minutes. I don't have time to talk about these works of art, which is really frustrating for me. This is just a small selection from the over 800 works that we have in the collection. I've leaned toward works that have been purchased more recently, in the past 8 or 10 years for the most part, and a small handful of works that were also in the Lehman collection, because Lehman owned Neuberger for a while, and we shared art, and I purchased art also for Lehman. So how did this company get started? How did the collection get started? It's an instance that it all goes back to the person who founded it, having a passion for art. And that was a guy by the name of Roy Neuberger, who went to Paris in the 1920s because he wanted to be an artist. And in the 1920s, that's kind of the place to be. In his own words, as he told me, I was lousy at it. So he decided that he would express his love of art by collecting it. And a major reason for founding the investment management firm of Neuberger Berman was to make enough money so that he could buy art. And he focused on works by living American artists. He was a very legendary collector. He was much involved in the founding of the Whitney Museum of American Art, a lifetime trustee of the Metropolitan Museum, and so on and so forth. He inspired other people to collect, and the offices of Neuberger Berman were filled with contemporary art that belonged to individuals who were there. But you know, eventually what happened is that people gave their art away to museums, or maybe they passed away themselves, or whatever. As a matter of fact, Roy Neuberger gave his collection to become the core of a very well-known university museum outside of New York City called the Neuberger Museum of Art in Purchase, New York. So in 1990, the firm decided, you know, to honor our founder, who, by the way, is 106 years old. So in order to honor Roy in 1990, the firm started to collect works by contemporary artists. And at that point, a decision had to be made of whether to go in depth or in breadth. But because the idea was to support as many artists as possible, the decision was made to buy just one or maybe two works by a particular artist to spread around that support as much as possible. The trick was to buy artists early in their career, to support them when they needed the support. That also had a market advantage, quite honestly, when the art was a bit less expensive. So Neuberger Berman exemplifies a collection heritage that began with the founder, and the firm has seen a period of time in which all the art there belonged to individuals. After 1990, all of it belongs to the firm. So I now want to turn to the nuts and bolts of a corporate collection, which if that puts some of you to sleep or you need to go outside, I'll totally understand. But in talking about a corporate collection, I thought that this was a necessary thing to do. It's kind of going on the assumption that you don't have that much experience with the nuts and bolts of a corporate collection. And then, when I'm done with that, I'm going to talk about some ideas about how to go about collecting and issues of quality.